have to ask them questions.
How did all these kids get in the store without their parents?
That is a good question. That is a good question. They are on their way to school, and it's 2 school buses. And I'll tell you guys what happens. It all happens in the first chapter of the book. But the school buses happen to be, there's a middle school bus and a high school bus, and they're just happen to be close together when this, oh man, I'm going to start spoiling stuff. I'm not going to spoil, but you know what? There's a heroic bus driver who drives the bus into the, it's a Target, but I call it a Greenway because I didn't want to be sued. I have enough lawsuits pending already. No, so this heroic bus driver, Mrs. Woolley, saves all the kids, and she's also a big hero in the book. I have a thing for lady bus drivers, and if you go to my website, this is a theme. There's a theme in my work. If you go to my website, there's this comedy song that I wrote for Comedy Central that's a love ballad to a lady bus driver.
It's true. I feel like I know too much.
Okay.
That's the amazing thing about this tour is I'm learning something different in every panel.
I have a question.
Do any of y'all have a thing for lady bus drivers? Like, have you ever pondered over that? Raise your hand. Raise your hand.
If you have a thing for lady bus drivers, come see me after the show. We can talk about them, how beautiful they are, those leather gloves they wear, sometimes. Let us know.
No.
Any other non-bus driver related questions?
I have a question.
Oh my good gravy.
Do I have a southern accent?
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Raise your hand if I have a southern accent.
A little bit.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Because of... Okay, raise your hand again.
Wait a minute, hold on. Let me take a picture because this is a question she asks. I'd like to have proof. Does Anna have a southern accent?
This is a yes or your yes?
Yes.
Throw this down and walk out.
No. This is a southern accent. I do not have a southern accent.
Somebody has a more southern accent than you.
It's a horrible southern accent. This is not a southern accent.
Are there any non-lady bus driver or southern accent?
Maybe about writing or books. Just
Yes.
So you're all part of the Fierce Reads tour. What makes your book so fierce?
Do you know what's funny? I actually got asked this by a blog, and I made this joke about the honey badger battle in chapter. And in the blog comes out. Like you cannot tell it's a joke at all. So I'm not gonna go with that. I actually read that, and I thought I don't remember that the honey badger battle. I will say that I think the setting of my book is pretty fierce. It's a brutal world, but it's also a beautiful world. It's I wanted to take readers someplace really spectacular and lavish, but underlying all of this is the knowledge that if you are not born into this, if you're not a Grisha, who are the magical elite in this book, or if you're not royalty, chances are you're going to end up drafted into the army. It's what happens when you're 16, and you're going to have a real rough time of it. You're basically cannon fodder. I think also, girl with power, girl versus the world is always pretty fierce. And the honey badger battle in chapter 3.
Mine doesn't have honey badgers, so it's not nearly as fierce. But
It's got Clark Kent glasses.
yeah,
This is true.
the love interest wears very hot glasses. It's fierce. It's extremely fierce. I think that anytime you put people in extreme situations where they're forced to figure out how to survive, you find out who the fierce ones are. And with my character Mia, I wanted to torture her so much, just like make everything so terrible for her and so hard. I put every amount of pressure, like all the things I could do to put pressure on her, I did. And, you know, I wanted to see if I could break her, and you'll have to read the book to find out if I did that. But, you
A
know,
little bit.
I think I found out that she was pretty fierce.
I think what makes Monument 14 fierce is just the torque in the plot, actually. It just doesn't let up. It's just one thing after another. The catastrophes that these kids make it through, it never stops. So I think it's the structure, actually, just the plot structure. Fierce.
I agree.
Southern accent.
Well, my character Emma is not fierce, really. I can't.
It's not good.
It's not good.
Oh, it's French.
So anyway, Emma is clumsy, like really pale, sarcastic. I don't know where she got that from at all. She isn't exactly fierce, but there are shark attacks, you know, and chick fights, and there's a car accident. That's pretty fierce. And but you know what is fierce is that I live close to the beach, and they tell you know what an undertow is, right? Well, they tell you the best way to survive an undertow is to not fight it, to let it just sweep you out. You know, hold your breath, don't fight it, go all the way out, no matter how far it takes you. And that's the only way you're going to survive it. Save your breath, and it'll eventually let you up. I think that, in a way, Emma does this. You know, she kind of rolls with the punches, and she goes with the flow in order to survive what's happening around her. So that's pretty fierce. Have you ever, raise your hand if you've ever been caught in an undertow. You have?
I grew up on a beach. Yeah.
Was it? How'd you like that?
It's about as fun as being shoved in the dryer.
Which is
Were-
not.
Were you shoved in the dryer?
Maybe. I got cold.
I was too. My cousin did that.
Worst one than the sides.
Any other questions? Yes.
Are these all the first books that you guys have written?
First published. I've written other books. You will never read them.
Yeah, we're all debut authors. It's all of our first books.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very much. This is my third, appearance as an author. It's really fun, and you can tell we're a little bit punchy. But it's really fun. Yeah,
I sleep very well.
She's like a sniper. And then she just zings you. It's fantastic. This is my first published novel. I worked for a little bit of time as a ghostwriter, and I also worked as a screenwriter. So I wrote 5 screenplays, none of which ever saw the light of day. But that was great practice, and I do believe that you need to write. They say you need to write. They say something terribly cruel, like 10,000 pages before you're good.
1 million words.
Yeah, and that I think is mean, and that's very discouraging. But each of those screenplays, when I was writing it, I was thinking, okay, this is it. I'm gonna sell it. I'm gonna be a screenwriter, and they were flawed. They didn't quite work. They just, creating a novel or a screenplay or any work of fiction, they're like an animal. They need to have all the parts of it. They need to have legs and a heart and a belly, so they can walk and function. And if you leave something out, you got like a crippled dog.
A crippled
It's a
dog.
terrible analogy, but in any case,
Fabulous.
I'm sorry.
Nice image.
Dog lovers, I love dogs too. But in any case, this is the first thing that made it to publication, and we're all terrifically proud of these fine functioning animals here on the table.
Yes. in the back.
Okay, so you said you used to write screenplays. How is that different from, how is the process different from publishing, like an actual novel? Because with publishing, you have to go through the houses, obviously, then they'll edit it and change it or whatever. How exactly does that work for screenplays?
Getting a novel, that's a great question, and there's a long answer that I'll try not to be long about. This is a finished product. I wrote it, they edited it, they suggested edits. I took most of their edits because they're very good editors. And here you're going to hold in your hands, you're going to read it. This is an incredibly direct experience. And with self-publishing, it's able to get your work into the hands of your readers immediately. A screenplay is really hard. You write a screenplay, the way you bring a screenplay out is you write a screenplay, you perfect it. It has to be perfect, every word exactly right. And then you try to get an agent, and the agent sends it out to producers and to studios and to executives and big production companies and little production companies, and you hope that somebody falls in love with it. And then they have to go and raise money. And then they have to put a film together. I mean, the fact that any films are ever made is a miracle. It's such a long and difficult process. So that was one of the things that made me want to switch, actually, from screenwriting to writing novels.
I'll say too. I never wrote screenplays. I wrote the scripts for movie trailers. I was a copywriter, so like In a Land Without Justice and that kind of thing. And except they never let me do that. I was the only woman on staff, so they only had me working on things like The Princess Diaries and Herbie Fully Loaded and stuff. So I was more like, Jenny was a girl who couldn't catch a break and that kind of thing. But it's true. But I used that line many times. What I was going to say is something that struck me. It was unintentional. Going into this process was. Nobody needed to take a meeting with me when they bought the book. They read the book. I had some phone conversations. But it wasn't like, let's get you in here and see if you're fun and see if it's fun to hang out with you. And it was not about how they didn't know how I looked. They'd never seen my picture. I could have been, living in a cave and, with Wi-Fi, and they wouldn't have cared. It was really, which actually sounds kind of appealing, but they didn't care. What they cared about was the story. And that, as somebody who grew up in and lives and works in Hollywood, that was really lovely.
I want to talk a little bit about this too, because I do some screenwriting, but I always wanted to be a novelist. But I was a terrible novelist at first. I've told some of you these stories, but the first 2 books I wrote somehow ended up being about 800 pages long, which is about 2 times too long for a first book from an unknown author. And I didn't know what I was doing wrong. What I was doing wrong was that I was putting every idea I had into the books I was writing. And I lived in LA, so I thought, well, this novel writing thing's hard, so I'm going to try screenwriting because it's got to be easier. There are fewer words in a screenplay. So I tried screenwriting, and I had the same experience where it's very frustrating because, you're never finished until the movie is made. And so few movies are made that it feels like you're all, oh, okay, that's okay, put that one away. But after I learned how to screenwrite, I went back to writing novels and I understood what I had been doing wrong, which is that I was putting every idea I had into them instead of going with a high concept idea, something that I could actually, deliver and tell somebody about instead of, it's like the Dune meets The Hunger Games meets Twilight meets the Bible meets fucking Vampire Slayer meets and just.
I would read that.
You will be the only one.
I'll read 800 pages.
So, I think it's really important, the lessons that I learned trying my hand at screenwriting, and I still do it. My husband's a director, so I get to just write a screenplay and give it to him and say, you should make this. So now my experience is different. But yeah, screenwriting is frustrating. Very frustrating. Or the world of it. Writing a screenplay is fun.
It's a great exercise. if you're training as a writer, it's a great exercise to write screenplays because you have to be incredibly active. In a book, you can have your characters talking about what they think, and you can talk about their history, and you can talk about anything you want, right? You can say anything you want in a novel. It can go anywhere. It can go back and forward in time, but on the screen, you can only describe what people see. You can never say, she sat in the chair and thought about how sad she felt. Because we can't see her thoughts. You have to say, she slumps in the chair, looking at her feet. And from that we get that she's sad, hopefully. That she has big feet.
This is for Anna. So in in your next books, like, will you ever have a different point of view besides Galen and Emma?
You mean in the series?
Yeah.
Of course you mean in the series. I don't know. What point of view would you like to see?
Raina.
Yeah.
She's such a hag, though.
She's awesome.
Would it be nice, like, oh, I don't really hate Emma. She's actually prettier than me. That's why I hate her.
What if she really doesn't like her?
It'd be awesome.
I'll think about it. I might at least do like a short story or something from Raina's point of view. You know,
Ooh, novella.
bonus material. Because she is fun to write.
How her and
Hags are
Toraf
really
met.
fun to write. So I might do that. Yes.
Why did each of you choose to make your characters young?
I wanted to write a story about people who are at a particular time in their lives, and I didn't really give a whole lot of thought to their specific age until I got a little further into the book. I think there are decisions you make when you're 16 or 15 or 17 that are just, they mean something different than if you made the same decisions when you were 30. And I think also, like, I don't know, I think there's this, one of the things I like about writing YA is it's, you know, at least for me, that was a period of time in my life where I had not built up all of my armor yet. I thought I had, but I really had not, I wasn't nearly as jaded or cynical as I thought I was. And I think there's something really spectacular about the level of both idealism and passion and excitement that you can have. And you know, you never fall in love again the way you fall in love when you're 15 or 16. Like, you can't, because it's sort of like, you know, it's like you build up scar tissue. You know, if you fall in love again like that, you know, you're going to get your butt kicked. But it's like, you know, you learn to protect yourself, you learn to hide parts of yourself, and that's not something that you've necessarily learned to do yet. I think you can be, not naive, but open to things in a way that maybe adults can't be.
Personally, I liked the idea of putting somebody who was still a teenager into an adult situation. Because in Struck, Mia is forced to take care of her mom after the earthquake, who has acute stress disorder, which is kind of like post-traumatic stress disorder, but to the 10th power. And you know, she's the one who is, you know, taking care of her, getting food for the family, like trying to figure everything out. And a part of me would, you know, it's like kind of a fantasy of mine to, you know, be that age and kind of like be in this heroic situation where you're the one in charge, you're the one who's going to save everyone. Like, again, my superhero complex is coming out, but I don't really think about age too much when I write the character, because I just like people. She's a person. I actually have to try hard to like keep it young adult because I tend to stray into, you know, more adult situations content-wise. So I'm always having to tone it down a little. But yeah, I you know, but part of it is that I have a young adult voice, you know, character-wise. So I just that is what I should be writing. I don't have an adult voice yet. I haven't grown up yet as a child.
I think, you know, I'm trying to top Leigh's answer, but honestly, I think that's it. I can't top her. She's right. It's you write about it because well, you know, it's hard to say why I write YA, but I'll tell you why I read YA. It's because at that time, you're figuring out how everything works, and everything is more, it's just more alive. Everything's harder and more wonderful. The ups are upper and the downs are downer. That's great grammar, in case you don't know. So that's, I love to read it, I think because you get to fall in love for the first time again. There's a love story in all of these YA books, there's a love story. And that wonderful feeling you get to recapture when you read a young adult book. So that's why I read.
I really feel bad saying this because everyone else's answers were so profound. Mine is just that I'm pretty immature. And I usually can relate to people younger than me than adults. Like, I really don't have anything to say to adults that a lot of people don't get me, I don't think. You know, whereas, you know, younger, like, teens get me, you know, and they snicker at my jokes, and adults are like, what do you mean? You know, and I'm just like, nothing. Well, I mean, they get me, but
yeah, we're not. No, I actually don't even. Go on.
I mean, that
You were
was it.
saying you're immature.
Carry on. I wanted to say too. I think it's a period of time when it's a period of time when you're coming into conflict with the world for the first time, in terms of determining who you are. You know, like that's when you're. I think it's interesting though, Anna, because you're of these books, you're the only person I think with like a functioning parent in the book. Like her mom is not. I mean, like.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I think that's kind of interesting. My characters are orphans and refugees, so. I mean, I will say too that I think being a teenager we've all chosen sort of extreme situations to put people into, and in a fantasy world, one of the reasons I like writing high fantasy is because it means something different to be 16 in this world than it means to be 16 in our world. At the same time, it's when you are finding out who you are and you're realizing that the world is not going to be very kind to you sometimes if you're different. You know, like that's I think also a very big part of almost every one of our stories is, you know, the sort of search for identity and in the cold, cruel world. So, yes, that's all I had to say.